Wake up, everybody. My name is La Loya. I'm also my everyday name, or as we say in Canada, my goods and services tax name is Russell Coy. La Loya is an ancestral name. It goes back hundreds of years, back to the time of first contact. If you were at the opening, you may have heard that. I'm not going to get into that part today because it's not about my name. It's about so much more. But with any good thing, before we get started, particularly when we're honored to have elders join us here, we always want to start off acknowledging the land in which we're on, and I'm really delighted to call on Aunty Marilyne just to introduce where we are, so you have a reminder.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Aunty Marilyne, or Marilyne. I'm at the Curralung camp down the end there, where the other elders are from the other international guests, so it's really good to have them all camping with us and sharing culture and different ideas. And I believe that's going to be some of the topic that we're going to be talking about as well today. We're happy to answer your questions, so don't make them difficult, because we've had a heavy day yesterday preparing for ceremony. So I'd like to acknowledge our traditional owners, the Dja Dja Wurrung, and also the Wurrung people, who are our neighbouring tribe. This area is shared country between the two tribes. For those that weren't here yesterday for the opening ceremony, it was introduced in such a way, and we had neighbouring tribes that also danced with us as well as our international guest. So we do believe in sharing worldwide. But yeah, we are the traditional owners and the Wurrung people. Dja Dja Wurrung and Wurrung. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to have Aunty Shirley introduce herself before I get started.
Hi, I'm Aunty Shirley. I'm a Yorta Yorta Wamba Wamba Cherokee. We're here to just show our appreciation of our culture and everything. And I hope... Oh. Right there. Did you, sorry.
There you go.
Did you hear everything? Yeah? Sorry. Okay, well, welcome and hope you have a good time and just hope the questions are good. Okay, thank you. Need Monica now.
So we're just, while we're waiting for another beloved elder to join us here, we are in as fast as we can go in this heat speed. Again, we really want to honor that our beautiful elders, they serve us in so many ways. You may not see what they do, but one thing I love to express that they'll never tell you is the preparation they do before they come here. Medicines don't just fall into their lap. They go and gather those medicines. Ceremonies don't just fall into their lap. They sat with their elders. They sat with their teachers. And they are also sitting with the young ones to make sure that that knowledge is passed on. They sit with non-Indigenous people as well to take the time and connect with you so that you feel welcome in their territory. So I know we're getting prepared for a feast for tonight. We had all that beautiful dancing and all that support that they provide to our dancers and for that beautiful way of cultural sharing that happened yesterday. So can we show these beautiful elders some love? So I'm going to just have, we're just going to go to microphone, this standing mic here. Yeah, it's on. And Aunty Monica will introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all here. I'm Monica. I'm Bangarang Dja Dja Wurrung, and I'm happy to share whatever I can with you to give you a better understanding and to help you process anything you're not sure of. If we can help in any way, please, don't make it too difficult. Enjoy.
So really, with your permission, I mean, we have this big fancy title, Spiritual Unity, Collective Consciousness, and Sustainable Futures, but these aunties are brimming with stories and teachings and sharing, so I'm going to open it to them. But before we do, I really wanted to offer a little bit of the heartbeat of our mama to you and and honor our elders. Where I come from, I'm from the Secwepemc people of the place that's now referred to as British Columbia, Canada. And on the Statlium side, we're very strong in our drumming and our singing. We're also very strong in our social dance. So as I like to say, the men, they like to look fierce and strong and hard, and I got this, and I'll hunt, and I'll protect, and all that. And us ladies, we're like, not only do we have this, but we have this, we're going to dance it backwards because we're that good. So this is one of our shahota, our social dance songs. It comes from my great-grandfather. And he, just like here, a lot of travel, he traveled far to learn some things and bring it back to our community. And on that travel, he had an inspiration for his song. It's called Over the Waves, or as we also refer to it, Grizzly Bear Paws Over the Waves. It's got a fun, happy beat. I know it was a good, long night for you all last night, so may this lift your heart and bring some joy in.
Lawyer, do you want me to hold the mic for you?
I got a loud voice.
Hey.
And I just wanted to show, I do have the official Aussie tan now.
I think I'm up first. All right, so for those that are just turned up, I'm Aunty Marilyne Nicholls in the Curralung camp. The topic we have up here is a very interesting topic. I'm going to take the mic off.
Here, what, the handheld?
That one? Yeah. And I'm just going to talk a little bit while I'm standing up here. So to me, I'll talk about spiritual unity first. Our first topic up there among the title. Spiritual unity to me is about working with other people, whether they're medicine men or women or warrior men and women throughout the world. So we're not all segregated, but we have common things to share, whether it be medicine plants, handling fire, working with different tools, but we have some very, very similar things. I've been involved with spiritual unity of the tribes for about 16 years now, with the first sacred fire that first came to Australia. And it was on Dja Dja Wurrung country in the mountains, not far from Dja William, which is one of our sacred mountains. Since then, that fire's travelled throughout Australia, and each time we take sacred ash from that fire to the next fire. And within that are prayers and blessings and pure clean ash, no domestic fire ash, because we use a different fire and different ceremony around that purpose of fire. It's not a domestic fire for cooking. It's not a fire like a social fire or barbecue fire or let's sit around and have a couple of cans of beer and drink. It's totally prayers, and people's prayers for health and healing and for peace throughout the world. So the next one's in Yulpagulp country. That's in Anzac Day this year. So that's a big camp that we're organising out on country near the Murray River. It's way up past Victoria, more towards Mildura, of which we're going to invite international guests. So there at that camp we'll have wise people, wisdom keepers that will share different things and stories around that sacred fire with those who choose to wish it, to listen. There are certain protocols we have at that fire, the way you dress, the way you conduct yourself, and some of the values and belief systems on who we are as peoples of the world. Which means that you don't hold back on who you are, hence that's why you see people like myself mixing with people like the lawyer and Lakota Elder Ben as well, who was speaking just recently, but he's gone now. So we have that understanding of who we are as peoples, as First Nation peoples, and who we are culturally different, but we share wisdom and understanding and medicine stuff together. All right, so I'm happy to answer a few more questions about that later. The other topic is collective consciousness, sustainable futures. My other role is also working, so I wear two hats, two worlds. The other one is about working with the Dja Dja Wurrung people, my people, with water. So I work as a water project officer, which means there's a lot of health and healing that needs to go on with our waterways to have clear waters once how they used to be. As well as we don't own water as Dja Dja Wurrung people. So it's a little bit of a journey even for some of my elders, the Dja Dja Wurrung people, to understand what's happened with our waterways since our lands have changed, and people have learned how to control farms and control the water and the natural flow of how water reaches down to our river system. So there's a lot of unfolding and healing going on, as well as mining companies that have also taken over the use of water for their business, and cleaning up the sludge and other things. So it's a big job. It's a rewarding job that sometimes I think to myself, what the hell? But anyway, I'll keep at it. So I'm not on my own in that. I work with a group of people, and we also directly work with partnerships and building partnerships with government bodies as well, so that we can reach a better goal for the future, and the future is for the kids, not us and who we are today. It's about the future of the children. So we've got to leave them something clean, something good. If we don't have water, we don't have life. All right, so I'm going to hand over now to Aunt.
Thank you so much to Aunty Marilyne. And I'll have you introduce yourself.
Hi. We'll just talk about family values.
Kia ora koutou, te whānau, kua taimane ki tēnei rā. My name is Irene Winter, Whaia Irene, and I'm from the New Zealand Māori nation, from Ngāpuhi in the far north of New Zealand. Sorry, is that better? I'll reintroduce. So my name is Irene Winter, and I'm from the New Zealand Māori nation, from the very far north of a tribe called Ngāpuhi Nui. I pay my respects to the elders of this land, past, present and future. We pay our respects. So sustainability and the environment, we believe that our people are one with the environment. We're fortunate that we are brought up in that way, so our respect and our gods are with the environment, so the land, the water and the air. Obviously, issues worldwide with the major ecological collapse that's happening right now because of industry. So more and more we're seeing an uprise of Indigenous people all over the world fighting for rights for the environment. And not just Indigenous, but people from everywhere around the planet are realising how precious Mother Earth is. So just having come, I'll also like to speak about coming back. We've just been to Canada earlier this year, and we had the privilege of spending time with the First Nations people there on one of their reservations where they were building a village so they could bring back their language and many of their customs. And they couldn't drink, and I'm not sure whether you know about Canada, but there's lakes everywhere. There's the Great Lakes everywhere, so there's water everywhere, and they couldn't drink their own water. They can't even clean it through nuclear waste. It's all nuclear radioactive. So, and that's just one part of the world. And we have this vision of a green, clean Canada, a green, clean New Zealand, when in fact industrialisation is in there doing its work and taking all that away from the people of the world, from the people. So that's my introduction. Kia ora koutou.
So just remember to keep the mic right. Just keep the mic close to you. Good
morning. My name is Monica. I'm Bangarang Dja Dja Wurrung person, and I just want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm one of 14 children. I have a twin brother. We lived on the land. I never grew up in a house. We had a tent, and we travelled all over Victoria, and we were very blessed to be able to grow up on country. We never got a proper education as such in a school, so we were so homeschooled. Everything was all environmentalish, environmental. So we milked our own goat, had our own milk, planted our own vegetables wherever we stayed. If we camped on the river, we fished. We were brought up as natural as possible, and we miss that now because everything's changed. Even the water, if you go and try and drink it, you have to make sure what's in there before you even go and have a wash or bathe in it. So it's totally different for us now, the way it was and the way it is now. If everybody looks at what they do, every action has a reaction. So I just like to try and pass a little bit of my knowledge on to anyone while I'm here. So if you have anything in that line to ask me, I'll be more than happy to help you, okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much to our beautiful elders here, and they made it very clear that they don't want to talk at you, they want to engage with you. So we're going to open the floor, but just to help everybody out, one of our tech support here guys here, thank you so much. He's got a microphone, so we could that will help us hear you. So if you have a question you want to ask our beautiful aunties, just raise your hand, make a sign, and there we go. We'll just use the table mics for answering.
Hi, I'm wondering what your perspective is. Sorry?
I'm going to invite everybody to do something that we do. Introduce yourself and where are you from? And
Cool.
then so we know who we're talking to,
Sure.
so we can acknowledge you and your ancestors.
My name is Navozison. I've grown up in Melbourne on Wurrung land, and my family is from Israel. My question is, how do you feel about Rainbow Serpent as a festival's relationship with First Nations people, and in particular the fact that the festival begins on Invasion Day?
I'll try and answer that the best way I can. It's Marilyne, Aunty Marilyne. I remember when I was 17 and my family grew up on the riverbank on the Murray River. We weren't allowed to live in town at those days. Aboriginal people weren't, unless they were known as another nationality. So my parents struggled with us, 7 of us on the riverbank. And we lived in a tin house made of corrugated tin with a dirt floor, but it was always clean because my parents were... they never drank or anything like that. There was none of that in their life because there was other things that they were more worried about, is making sure we were okay and gave us better things for our future. So eventually we moved into town when they had the assimilation process, which is a government policy to move Aboriginal people from riverbanks into towns and try and blend them in so that we were non-existence. But it hasn't worked. We're still here, and we're still strong in our spirit. No matter what we look like and how light-skinned or blue-eyed we are, we're still strong within our Indigenous spirits as Aboriginal peoples. And anyway, so those policies and processes that have been introduced to us throughout the years, over the years, people say, oh no, don't get political about all that, and don't carry a chip on your shoulder, but they're part of our learning and our values and the scars that we inherit from our ancestors. So they paved the way for us to have a better life. So who I am today is because of those basic teachings that started with the riverbank and those processes that we've gone through. So Invasion Day was something that I grew up with not thinking whether or not I should think about it, and being an Indigenous person, Aboriginal person and a strong black woman, I wasn't sure whether I was to think about it in a good way or a bad way, because it was always projected upon us throughout my school system, throughout school, that it's a negative thing to be Aboriginal, to be black. And so years down the track when more of I met up with many more of my people. In Victoria, we became a collective of tribes. It's only more recently now we identify more in who we are as language-speaking people. And we're so diverse, it's unbelievable. You know, we have Wiradjuri, we have Dja Dja Wurrung, we have Wurrung, Tangarang, there's a whole heap. And so it's allowed us to speak more freely about who we are. And today we have such modern-day younger people who grew up with, or have grown up with some of our kids that have been going to school. So it's not uncommon to accept and be who you are, like the younger generation who you are sitting out there today. It doesn't worry you who we are. It's just so respectable, always respectable to us. I've always found rainbow in the last 5 years that I've come here. I've always had respect from the younger ones, so I think that they've grown differently and they understand better from what it was when I went to school and what it was when I was younger. So I believe the direction and where we're going is about unity and about people becoming one, but understanding who we are as diverse people. So we don't lose our traditions, we don't lose the way we speak, the way we do music, and we can stand together as people throughout the world. Everybody is from another country, you know, and you have strong cultures and values in your countries. I don't think it's good to see us all painted the one brush in the world, that we just people. We're people, but we're all diverse, and we all have our own ways of believing, even your country. So to me, Invasion Day, it's a little bit of a sore spot, but it also reminds me of the struggle of what our people have gone through to survive who we are. With Rainbow, that we have people, I think there's quite a few. Who knows about Invasion Day here? See, so they all know that Invasion Day is what it's all about, but Rainbow is about us being here and to keep sharing our culture in it as well, so that we don't always have to be in Melbourne at the march. I like being here too, because we've already got family doing stuff down there. So to me, there's a balance of us all coming together and being one as people. I mean, we don't want war and fights and, you know, in our one place we have to live, home, Mother Earth, being destroyed, because I'm not going to the moon to live. So I don't know whether I've answered your question enough, but yeah, but I do have an issue with Invasion Day, the way it's celebrated. I think it needs to be probably, I don't want to get political about it, but I think we need to have a day that was our day, a sorry day of remembering. And I think it needs to be remembered that what our ancestors, like my father's now an ancestor, but he certainly had those scars too, and so did my grandfather, of working to who I am today, and then me to who my kids are. So we kind of work it in that way, pass it on from generation to generation, and I don't want to forget those things, because that's my history. I don't know whether I've answered your question okay, or if somebody else wants to add to it. Thank you.
We're good. Thank you. In Canada, we have National Aboriginal Day. It was just changed to National Indigenous Day. As you probably figured out, what we call ourselves and what others call us is very politicized. And for us, we called ourselves Aboriginal, not to take away from here, but that was a term to embrace the First Nations, the Métis and Inuit, the Indigenous people of Canada. And there was a coined term based on a Royal Commission on Aboriginal People in the 90s. So to uphold that sort of policy, legal studies, became Aboriginal. Nowadays, you hear more often Indigenous, and you wonder where that's coming from. That's coming from the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So when we want to be inclusive to all of our beautiful spectrum of First Peoples of the lands, we say Indigenous. Obviously, the best gosh darn thing you can do is wherever you live, find out whose territory you're in and learn their name. Not just saying Indigenous or First Nations, but whom? Who's here? Who was here before you, and who has welcomed you graciously into their territory? That's a really great way of a first start to recognition and healing, to be seen. We all need to be seen. So I think part of what I hear you saying, my beloved auntie, is we all need to be seen. We want to see you, but we need you to see us. And when we see each other, that's healing in its own right. The floor is open. Our beautiful aunties, there's a gentleman over there and over there. Our beautiful aunties are so gracious and giving here. They are really our pillars and hold us together just by being. I saw the strength that they gave to our dancers yesterday just by being, so they were able to work through that heat. All right, we're going to go to the next question.
Hi, my name's Nick. I'm from Melbourne. I also grew up on Wurrung land. My ancestors are originally from Ireland and Scotland and were amongst the first colonizers in this area of this continent, and something I'm still coming to terms with. I want to ask a question about, it's somewhat difficult to ask. I work for an organisation called Students for Sensible Drug Policy. Sorry, I work for an organisation
We can't hear the floor mic, please. If we could have it turned up. It's not you, it's the music.
Yeah, it's the music.
Okay, let's try that again. So go to your question, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start again. My name's Nick. I grew up in Melbourne on Wurrung land, and my ancestors are from Ireland and Scotland, and were original colonizers in this land. And like I said, it's something I'm still coming to terms with. The question I want to ask is reflective of the organization that I work with, and some things I've been learning over the past year in doing that. We're called Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and it's an international organization that aims to end the war on drugs and create drug policies and communities based on human rights, compassion, evidence, etc. I was recently in the States where I learned a lot about how the war on drugs affects particularly racial minorities there, and how it's linked, or there's research and theories and conversation beginning on how its legacy might be linked to colonialism and deeper injustices in society. And I know I'm just beginning my connections and understandings with the Indigenous communities here, and I don't know a lot about your perspectives on this, and I'm just interested, given how things are from your perspective, what your relationship with drug law reform is, and whether things like decriminalisation in relation to perhaps Indigenous incarceration and usage patterns and all this sort of thing is something that you resonate with, given that we're here at Rainbow Serpent and there's all a bit of intersectionality in that sort of thing, I think. I'm really interested.
Thank you so much for the question. Oh, and we'll, hello, good to see you. We'll introduce you and see who wants to take a question. Basically, we heard about incarceration and the war on drugs, and we know certainly we overrepresent in the prison system, but we're going to go to over here to have you introduce yourself. Welcome.
Welcome. Have to stand up?
Yeah, it's fine.
Kia ora, ko Jeremy Nicholls taku ingoa, ko no Otorahanga ki Aotearoa, New Zealand, ahau, no Ngāti Maniopoto tōku iwi, ko Hariata Koroheke tōku whaia, ko Eo Nikoro tōku pāpa. Nei te mihi kia koutou katoa, ai tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everybody, my name's Jeremy Nicholls. I just quickly introduced where I'm from in New Zealand, a little place called Otorahanga. About 10 years ago it got its first McDonald's, so now apparently it's a town, not a little village. And it's from my tribe is Ngāti Maniopoto. So Maniopoto was our ancestor that founded our tribe. And yeah, my mother is Hariata Koroheke and my father is Eo Nikora, which is kind of how we introduce ourselves in the ways of my people. That way we can kind of connect. I might have some relations out there that might go, hey, he's my cousin. It's like all us Kiwis were related, so especially us Māoris. So that's how, in the tradition of our land, we introduce our whakapapa, our genealogy. That way we connect in a way, because I might actually have some relations out there. So kia ora, that's me.
Thank you. So I don't know if you're, thank you. Again. we're all doing 1,000 things, and thank you for running up here, and we'll make sure we get you some water for the run. But again, the question, I think it's two parts to it. We know we're overrepresented. We also know that we're overly targeted by police. We also know some of that is the excuse of the war on drugs. And so I want to just see if there's comments here. I know in Canada, I'll let you think about it. Canada, we're getting to the decriminalization of marijuana. The date right now is July 1st of this year. I also know that some of our communities are very, First Nations are very concerned because of addiction issues. I call addiction as self-medication because there's too much pain and not the help that's necessary. That's my personal view. But I also know that there's other communities that are very active and wanting to get in on the support of growing medicine, growing the medicine that can be marijuana, and that they want to be in on that and know that it's helpful and open to that to get the criminal mindset out of it, and it's used with its right and intentful purpose. And we do know, personally not in my lineage, but certainly in other places, we do know that there is different types of hallucinogens that are taken in a sacred way, whether it's North America or South America or elsewhere. So we do know that there is hallucinogens in our practices, or there's ways that we go into a higher realm. So that part I know for myself. And again, I still think there is an issue, you know, we walk around brown, you know, you got to be easy on the town because you're going to get looked over in a different way. Racism is real. We know for ourselves in Canada, as an Indigenous woman, not only do I have to worry as an Indigenous, just by walking and being First Nations, I'm going to be 40% higher targeted of murder or missing. I also know that not only do I have to worry about walking down the street and being targeted, but I also know that I can be targeted. And we're dealing with that right now across the country, but in particular it's come up in Quebec, that there are police officers being inappropriate and let's call it what it is, sexual assault happening, targeting happening within our own prison systems, or even if someone's picked up on the street. We know about people being dropped off. They're drunk and they're dropped off without jackets and shoes. For those of you who heard the opening, you heard about me talking about minus 27. Imagine right now with what you're wearing being dropped outside of the city limits, drunk. That's what happens. And I know that's not limited to Canada, but that's what happens. So we know that there's certainly aspects there that we have to deal with. And I know, let's look at these beautiful elders, that they work within their own family systems and further to support people in a good medicine way, that they can find that healing and come to terms with what they may have put up with themselves, or with helping people get out of that situation of perhaps being arrested. So again, I'm going to turn to the table to see if there's any further comments on this question. Or
I'd like to comment on that one, but I won't go too much into it because it's such a big issue to work through in as many layers. I'll just tell a little story. In my hometown of Swan Hill, after I spoke about us living on the riverbank, my family, then moving into town through the assimilation process, we thought tobacco and alcohol was addictive things that weren't good for families and values of how families looked up on, plus coming from poor people, when and how could you afford it, when it's more necessary to put food on the table and feed the mob. So it's always been an issue, just basic tobacco and alcohol. Nowadays we've got so many other mixed things to deal with, and the younger generation, of which I understand that a lot would understand more about it than myself. My first insight to what marijuana looked like was when I was about 14. I was at the shops and there was a couple of guys there looking at, and I went to get bread and milk for Mum, and these boys were looking at this green stuff in their hands, and I thought, oh, what's that? And it wasn't until years down the track that I knew it was a drug. So marijuana was just becoming new in our town of about 400 people, so it wasn't really anywhere. Then further down the track now we've got ice to deal with nowadays, as well as other not very nice drugs. Myself, as a person that works in the area of holistic health and wellbeing, I worked for 30 years in Aboriginal health. Across that scale, I often wondered what it was all about, as in not just physical health and wellbeing or emotional or mental wellbeing, but what spiritual health and wellbeing was about. And it's not always about Christianity, it's about the well-being of the balance and who we are as peoples. And I understand that many people have gone through scars in their life and want to ease that with in some form or manner. I didn't even know what a bong bottle was about, so there you go, that's how naive I was. But I understand coming to Rainbow, I keep an open mind and a heart, because the last thing we want is people being sick from things that are not really necessary if we can help each other. So in that medicine wheel world, I managed to learn teachings from other countries, so through ceremonies such as my dance sister, Laloya, and some other nations of people. So I understood then that there was ways to use plants, such as medicine plants, and how to use them in a proper manner, and not overuse them and not overabuse them. So that balance even is keeping an open mind to what it's about. With alcohol, it's a little bit different. I mean, I don't mind having a glass of wine or two either myself, you know, but a little bit too much is not good either. So anyway, so I won't comment too much about that, but yes, certainly it's something within the health field when I worked in Aboriginal health that many of my community members, I saw their life pass before mine because of overuse or suicide or other things I wished would never have happened. So often there's not enough understanding and people out there to help with issues and how deep are those problems. So I think we have a thing that we need to all work together on with that stuff and look after each other, such as even here at Rainbow. If you know someone's got a problem and an issue and they're dealing with something and they may be overusing something, keep an eye on them. Make sure they've got plenty of water and in a clean place and they're sheltered, and get them help if they need to, because we don't want anybody else passing on here. It does happen, but it's not a good thing either. All right, so I'm just saying take care of each other as well. So I don't know if anybody else wants to comment, but yeah, anyway, it's words to share. Thank you.
Kia ora, bro. The brother that just asked that question, sorry, I apologise, I kind of came in halfway through your question, but I picked up on some really key words there as I was sort of rushing up and down. Like topics really close to my heart. I'm a youth community worker based in Melbourne. I mainly work with Māori, Pacific Island Aboriginal youth, and sort of do some other stuff within the community around. Was anybody here yesterday? They saw the Aboriginal celebration down at the main tent, and on Friday we did the opening with the Māori. Yep. So our groups, we do a lot of different cultural-based programs like kapa haka. So when we do the dancing with the poi and the haka and all that sort of stuff. Culturally specific programs for our youth to actually come in and not necessarily to teach them how to perform, but to actually just bring them in and be a bit closer to their traditional values, and we teach them their old ways of life. So your level, as Auntie sort of mentioned, it's very quite multifaceted and very deep. There's many and more people with degrees and stuff that have sort of analysed a whole heap of stuff around that. Colonisation is probably the big one for me. If you look at the span of human evolution, and especially in the last 10,000 years, how far we've actually evolved. And then you look at some of the indigenous cultures, how long they've practiced their art forms and their ways of life for thousands of years. And you look at probably the last 100, 200 years, and you imagine that going from 1,000, 60,000 years of practicing away and having a collectivist mind frame to being, I guess, ripped away from that base, and then in a wouldn't even be a blink of an eye in the span of evolution. So if you think about that in a context of 200 years, what's happened over to not just our Aboriginal cousins, but many of the Indigenous people around the world, that has to have some psychological, spiritual and emotional damaging effect on that person or that people's psyche. You know, if you look at colonisation, and again, this isn't about pointing fingers, this is just about understanding from our perspective, us giving you a perspective to think on and just think about. So as you walk away from here, you go, you know what, man, that actually made a bit of sense, because it's only through understanding that we can sort of move on, move forward. All right, so youth work, high rates of our young kids in prison. My day-to-day challenge is there's a number of different levels. It's working with them to just stop them getting into trouble. Secondly, working with them to actually identify, hey, you know, there's a lot of stereotypes about our culture, a lot of media stuff that hypes it up, you know, a lot of social issues. You know, our people are always drunk, apparently, we're always fighting, we've got low education rates. My big thing is about, yeah, okay, that's a product, that's not actually our culture. There's a lot of young kids out there, my Māori kids, that are ashamed to actually associate to being Māori, because all they think being Māori is about being drunk all the time, parents abusive, parents not working, all that sort of stuff that social media or the media have actually said, you know, that's what you are. That's our job here to actually say, no, that's not who you are. And we bring them into our cultural practices, we teach them kapaka, we show them that a family unit can actually support you in what you want to do. That's the beauty of our culture. One thing with our culture is we, in our belief, the male, a human is made up of 50-50, male and female. Regardless whether you're a man or woman, you got 50, you got both parts. You know, a lot of our young men, because I work with a lot of young men, and they think to be Māori is to use your fists. And they disconnect with their feminine side, because what do you mean be a woman? That's to be soft. We're meant to be rugby players and hard and tough. No, so half the battle is actually bringing them back into the cultural beliefs, the deeper cultural beliefs that have been stripped away from us through colonisation. That's the one part of the job, and the other part of the job is actually getting out and educating those not from within our community to say, hey, this is actually what we do. Boom, you come to Rainbow Serpent, you see some of our young ones that are actually performing. They were born and raised here in Australia. They're Mozzies to our people back home. Right? Māori Australians, Mozzies. All right, but that's why we do it, for them. So that when we walk away or when we pass away, we've set those foundations for those that follow us. So that's an awesome question, bro. And some of them are probably going, oh, here he goes again, looking at the watch. But yeah, you know, the work around drugs and stuff like that, again, for us, that's a system of control that colonisation brought on. That's something that's been brought on to us, and as a way of then trying to heal that psyche that's been damaged from having our culture ripped away over thousands of years, that's what we use. So that's, you know, for the last 30, 40 years, that's what's been the method. If you think about it though, 100 years ago, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, they were all readily prescribed by medicine, by doctors. All right, so there's a stigma attached to that that's been implemented, and you can get into all sorts of conspiracy theories about control and how, you know, corporations control us. There's a lot in that argument as well. So, you know.
I see your question, and I'm sure we could have many, many more, but I was unfortunately given the high sign. But that said, I have some homework for you. No, never apologize. In fact, Let's show this panel some more love for just showing up, being here, running here, being so free and willing. Something I want to tell you as well to be aware of. We talked about colonization, we talked about scars, we talked about hurt and harm. Each and every one of us, Indigenous people, carry that. There is a word or two words I would like you to think about. Emotional labor. So when you ask me a question about my people, or you ask one of my beautiful Aboriginal friends or Maori friends here about their people, we want to answer questions, but sometimes it's painful. Actually, very often it's painful. When I think about incarceration, I think of my brother. I think about my brother who learned about heroin in prison. But I also think about my brother through cultural teachings of the beautiful work of our brother here. He got in touch with our Northwest Coast carving. Unfortunately, the carving didn't win. The heroin did. That is a scar that I wear. We all have those. I'm not saying this to traumatize you with my pain. I'm just trying to make you aware of that. So what I really encourage you to do, a little bit of homework, a little bit of ripple effect, is take the time. What's the first one? Learn where you live. Whose people are hosting you? Honor them. Get to know them. Greet them. Acknowledge them. Invite them in. They've invited you in. Invite them in. Love us up, man. We need it. We need to feel acknowledged. We need to feel, most importantly, safe. There's a term, I don't really like it. It's kind of up there with emotional labor, but it's a term, it's called culturally safe. That we don't feel exposed and out there and bleeding while you learn about our pain. It's called trauma porn. We're not here to give you trauma porn. We're here to heal and help you deal with your settler background so you can heal and that we can be better together. So better together is learning where you live. Better together is taking time to research and read and ask other people, maybe, and more importantly, if you meet me, a First Nations woman from Canada, I'm going to be happy to answer some questions, but also know, do your own homework. Do some homework. Invest in yourself and your knowledge of the different peoples of the land, of the world, so that we can share and engage and be open. I want to know where you're from. I want to know about you. I want to honor who you are. And what I know about this beloved panel here is they're big, beautiful, generous, open-hearted people who want to acknowledge you as they want you to acknowledge them. That's why they're here. And we invite you to come. We're feasting tonight. I don't know the details about that. If someone can help me out with that.
It's a kangaroos. It's a cook-up of kangaroo
The
tails.
cook-up. Aunty Marilyne, you want to just talk about the cook-up?
Oh, well, that's another culture group, but they're
No,
still with our mob.
But you know what time it is?
Oh, I don't know. Have a look at the board around here. It'll be on the board there. But it certainly is something. I won't speak too much about it because it's not my culture.
No,
but I
no,
certainly
but
enjoy the
we're
food.
having traditional feast today.
On the board.
It's on the board.
6.
Auntie Karen can't hear you. So if somebody wants to re-shout what Auntie Karen said, that would be great. Okay, so we're going to have a feed for the community, a traditional feast tonight. Check out the board. So you got a little bit of right now homework to come and participate. I saw them preparing the kangaroo tails. Again, thank you so much. Our love to you. And again, one more time for a beautiful panel. Thank you. Have a happy rainbow, everybody. Happy rainbow.
Rainbow.